Jerry Sargeant. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here, Derek. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, super great to meet you. And I was really interested in a series of synchronicities when I first encountered you on giving interviews online. The one was about the dragon grid that you mapped it out and it looked like a dragon, and you were going to all these places planting double terminated quartz and unakite. I'd love to hear a bit about that whole process.
Yeah, so last June, what happened was it was kind of a chain of events building up to it. Christmas before, I lost the documents to my car, and obviously my car couldn't be driven, and I was phoning the DVLA, the Driving License Association in the UK, and they just kept fobbing me off. I was phoning them for months. They were like, yeah, we're dealing with it, but it's just taking a bit of time. And it was really what it was, a message from the universe to tell me to be still because I needed to look at something, but I wasn't getting the message. And then the following March, we went and did our Egypt tour. And when the boat was moored on the side of the Nile, me and some of the team went sprint training and my knee blew out. Anyway, the next day I did some work on it and with my son actually and got it back to the way it should be. Again, it was another sign to be still, but I didn't listen. And then after the Egypt tour, I flew to Mexico with my girlfriend and we did a retreat in the jungle. And then my knee started playing up again. I still wasn't getting the message. And I flew back to England. It was the start of June and my knee just blew out totally. I couldn't walk on it. So I got some crutches and I was walking around on the crutches and then my right shoulder went. So I literally, the total right half of my body was completely screwed. And the universe was forcing me to go in and look at this like real deep, ancient like piece of healing that needed to be done. So anyway, I go in and I work through all of this stuff. And as I'm working, one day I sit up on the sofa and this massive blue head comes through the fireplace. And the size of this head was bigger than a car. And this being had like big orange hair, a big beard, these bushy orange eyes. And he looked at me and he said, "Hi, Jerry. I'm Mora. I'm one of the cosmic grandfathers." And I was like, okay. And his head was so big, but he was like so powerful, but so gentle. Anyway, he introduced me to the cosmic grandfathers. There's 8 of them and each one represents a multiverse. So you imagine here in our 15th dimensional time matrix, we've got multiple universes, trillions and trillions and trillions of planets and galaxies, all of these wrapped up into one being. These beings are huge. They contain a lot of wisdom. So I went up to the realm of the grandfathers, met these beings. They started sharing information with me on many different things, because about a month later, we were due to do our first Savage Man workshop, which was all about embodying the divine masculine, allowing the king and the lion to rise from within to support the divine feminine. So there was still a few bits of information that I needed on that. So they came in to kind of furnish the rest of that workshop. But the other thing they did is they said, "Jerry, you need to go on a bit of a mission." I said, "What is it?" They said, "You need to buy some 2-pointed quartz crystals and some unakite dragon's eggs." I said, "Okay, where am I going to get these from?" I knew where to get the 2-pointed clear quartz from, but I'd never actually even heard of unakite. And so they told me which website to go to and how many to buy. So what I did is I bought 15 of each crystal. They gave me 15 locations on planet Earth. So I bought a map of the world and I got a marker and I put the 15 dots on, drew them together, and it created the perfect dragon's wing. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I know that there's multiple kind of ley line grid structures around the planet. You've got the Great White Lion's grid, the Golden Eagle grid. There's lots of grids that represent different animals and mythical creatures, but there's no dragon's grid. So I was asking what these dragon's grids were, and I was told they were the new 7th dimensional grid structures, an electrical masculine architecture to hold the embodiment of the new level of divine feminine that's coming through. So I got this information in June, and I had a really, really busy August, but they told me that I had to go on this mission. So I cancelled everything and brought over, I don't know how many flights we got. Me, my partner, and Cherie, our video editor, went. So Laurie, myself, and Cherie jumped on a plane. We started off in Romania. Then we went to France and we went all over the place. We ended up in Ethiopia, Syria, Russia, Easter Island, Ireland, like all these wild locations, burying these crystals in very specific spaces. And as soon as we buried them, we got the locations for the tail, which was New Zealand, Australia, Japan. We went to, and Hong Kong. We went to Hong Kong and and buried those because we had a training coming up there. And I need to go back to Japan, Australia, New Zealand over the course of the next few months. What we decided to do, because we had a choice, we could only really do the head or the tail over Christmas. We decided to do the head and the neck, which was Belize, Miami, LA, Jamaica, Dominican Republic. So we went to all those countries over Christmas and laid the grids there. So when we were in Ethiopia, I was outside the monastery where they got the Ark of the Covenant, and women aren't allowed in, and I was with two women. So we're just kind of hanging around outside, and this priest comes over to me and he looks in my eyes and he just goes like this, like with his finger, like, come on. And he didn't say a word. I just followed him and he walked over to another priest and got a key. So they opened up the church and I went in with him and no one was in there. We walked in and we walked right to the front and he turned around and he just smiled at me, like from here to like the other side of the universe. He was staring into my eyes and his eyes were just glistening. And his crown opened up and his light body just came right up. He was massive and he was just staring at me. And he gave me a key, like this electromagnetic holographic key. And then he came back into his body. I kind of kept the key. The priest just led me out. We didn't exchange one single word through the whole process. They locked the door and I went back to Laurie and back to Cherie. Later on that evening, I was back at my hotel and I'd getting the downloads of what the key was for. The key was to, first of all, unlock some dark satanic ley lines and grid structures that were underneath the Vatican, which we did when we got back. And the other thing, it was to activate this solar clock. So I was told that the Dragon's grid is like a key and it's going to activate this solar clock, which is going to cause a huge kind of wave of energy. People talk about these solar flares and, DNA activation and light codes hitting the planet. I mean, they're happening on a small scale and there's like mini uploads and downloads and mini shifts in consciousness here and there, but nothing to really write home about. So what we were told to do is after the trip, 500 of us got on Zoom, we held space and we got this dragon's wing. When you elevate the dragon's wing and you take it up into the galaxy and you expand it, it fits neatly over different planets and Stargate systems. And then when you elevate it up to a universal level, it neatly fits there too, across different galactic spaces. So you had these 3 tiers of this dragon's grid. So we had to link it all together and kind of activate it. And when we did that, I was told that this dragon's grid is going to start to compress time and space. And it's going to keep compressing all the energy from all these galactic celestial bodies, condense this energy down, compact it, and it's going to reach like a conversion point when it gets to its ultimate kind of like wind up point. And then boom, there's going to be a massive explosion of light. And I was asking how long that will be. And I was told in the next 5 to 10 years. So we've activated that now. And now we have to go and build the rest of the tail or the rest of the architecture. And we're just waiting for the download for the second wing. At first, I thought there was only going to be 1 wing. But now I know there's going to be 2. So we'll have 2 wings, the tail, the head and the neck. And what I've also been shown is once everything's in place, they're going to activate a new Stargate system on Earth, which is going to be awesome. I've already seen where it is. So I'm really excited about this. Yeah, it was cool to be part of the mission and be tasked with it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I love adventures and it's almost like following the clues and going to the places and unlocking the next level. Is there anything more you can say about Unakite itself? Why that stone?
It's a very grounding crystal or grounding stone. And it amplifies like that love frequency. It's a great space holder for vision, for the future, for love, for grounding, which are all really important elements of the electrical grid structure, because the electrical is the masculine. And the masculine is here on planet Earth to protect the feminine, to make the feminine feel safe, to hold a very sacred space and container for the feminine so the feminine can trust and start to blossom and bloom. Because without the electrical masculine, the divine feminine can't activate her full creation energies. She can't be the queen. So the king has to show up so the queen can show up. And really the queen has to show up so the king can show up too. So it's all about really holding that grounding, protective, safe space so the flow can come, so the feminine can come. The feminine is turbulent and untamed and wild. And so for the feminine to be turbulent and untamed and wild, the feminine has to have that kind of protective structure in place. And so the Unakite eggs serve that specific purpose.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you were ignoring the signs to slow down, like with your knee and the car and things like that. I think probably a lot of people, Jerry, would look at you and be like, "Oh, you're really good at picking up the signs and the guidance that you're getting." What was it about those signs in particular that had you not paying attention to them versus other ones that you do understand easily?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. So when I was born, like I was adopted, fostered as a child, and I found my real mum when I was about 24, 25 years old. When I was born, my mum was tortured. And as she was tortured, obviously it created quite a lot of, scarring for me. After I came out, I was put up for fostering and I was abused by my first foster parents. I had all the kind of memories and recollections and things like that. When I was in Mexico, I was told you I went to Mexico with Laurie to do a workshop. I was lying in bed one night and I wake up at like 2, 3 in the morning and I see myself at 2 months old and I'm wrapped in cling film and my foster mum and my foster dad are there. And there's another man there. And that man was my real father who I've never met. And that was the first time I'd seen him. And they were abusing me. And when I came out of this experience, I said to Laurie, listen, I think there's some military stuff going on here, but I can't figure it out. And I've dealt with a lot of clients over the years with satanic ritual abuse, demonic entities, some of the worst kind of hideous and horrific ways that a human being can be abused. It's nasty stuff. And I knew that I'd experienced some form of abuse. When I was going into this healing session to try and figure this stuff out, I went through multiple layers over the course of a month. Like I was working, man, from 6, 7 in the morning till evening, sometimes mid, working through this stuff. I was going through timelines, through dimensional fields, different past lives, future lives, figuring this stuff out. And I got to this one day and the cosmic grandfather says, listen, Jerry, you're ready now to go on and find out what you're really doing here and why your knee is playing up. I was like, thank fuck for that. Let's go in and sort this out, So he took me back to when I was 2 months old, the time when I was being abused. And I saw myself on my foster mother's lap and we're in a car and I was looking out the window. It was a sunny day and I could see that we were in Oxford. I was looking at the signposts and stuff, like remote viewing it. And we're going along and the car turns and goes up this gravel driveway. And at the end of this gravel driveway on the right, there's a massive, old stately mansion in good condition. And there's a guy there in a black jumpsuit, like a black kind of military attire at the top of these steps by the front door. So my mum gets out and she goes and gives me to this guy and he takes me inside. There's another kind of soldier or whatever he is in this black uniform there. And my mum and dad get in the car and drive off. They take me through the entrance to this green elevator. When we get in the green elevator, we start going down. We go down 11 stories. We come out the elevator and we walk down this crystal white corridor. It's just everything's white. Very kind of a bit like a bleached hospital, yeah, just very clinical.
Yeah.
So we go down this corridor, we go into a room on the right-hand side, and then I see myself as a baby. I've got this metal kind of skull cap on my head. They're putting drops of LSD onto my tongue. And there's all these kind of electromagnetic wolves and lions and things that are just scaring the crap out of me. And I watched myself go through this until I was 5 years old. And then they rewound the timeline, took me back through a Stargate, a portal system, and get until I was 2 months old, and then went and gave me back to my mum and dad. So I had all of this crazy trauma, plus the torture from being born, all at 2 months old, 5 years of all of this crazy trauma. I go through this process and witness all of this, and the cosmic grandfathers are with me. And I said, how do I sort this out? And he said, we're going to go now, and I'm going to take you up to the realm of the grandfathers where they got these big cosmic eggs and stuff. He said, come back with me. We're going to go into the egg. So I went back up. We go into this big egg and I'm lying in all this kind of plasma. And then the divine mother comes in and the cosmic grandfather is holding little Jerry at 2 months old. And the divine mother comes in and says, please, can I hold little Jerry? And so she's got little Jerry in her arms and she says, I need to give you something back. And what happened is when they took me through this process when I was younger, they stole my God spark, my divine spark, which every human being has. Every human being on earth has one. It's like our link to the divine intelligence. It's God itself, a spark of God inside of us. And when you listen to it, you can operate to a whole new level because it just guides you 24/7. Anyway, they took mine. And so the divine mother, she gave it me back. So she put it back into little Jerry, and then little Jerry, I integrated him back in with me. Then I'm lying on the sofa, I'm crying my eyes out, the emotion and the stuff that I'd been through over this month, it kind of all built up. I just burst out crying. The crazy thing is this: as soon as this happens, my phone rings, and it was a withheld number. I never answer withheld numbers, but I thought I felt like I needed to answer it, so I answered it. Hello, Mr. Sargeant. It's the DVLA, the driving agency. We're ever so sorry that we've not been able to give you your driving logbook, but we found it and we've completed it now. We're going to send it out first thing tomorrow morning, special delivery. You'll have it in 48 hours. And I just put the phone down. I was laughing. I was crying, like just going through this whole problem. So it goes to show, like, there's this mind that knows more than we do. And, you know, the universe was just trying to get me to do this work 6 months previous, but I wasn't listening. So it forced me to listen, you know? So in answer to your question, I think the reason I wasn't listening, there was a part of me that was like unconsciously kind of sabotaging me going in and doing this work because it was quite painful. You know, something that I'd kind of boxed up and didn't really want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All that is so intense. And yeah, I can imagine your subconscious being like a little wary of digging into that. I had heard you recount the sort of the part about your birth being traumatic. And now you're telling me about this military installation. Why are they doing that? And I guess I'm also curious about the God spark, like what it felt like to get that back. So whichever one you want to answer first.
I mean, the God spark's the simple answer. It just felt like bliss. It felt like amazing. And the thing is, I'd always thought that I was tapping into my God spark. I always thought that I was connecting, but I was connecting like in a forced way. It was like something that, because I know that this thing is supposed to be there, you know, and on some level, because we're multidimensional, I could feel it. But yeah, getting it back was just like, it was like bliss. And I just burst out crying. Like it was tears of happiness and joy and gratitude. And I was just so grateful that this had happened. You know, I was so grateful that I'd gotten to the bottom of this stuff, you know, that I needed to facilitate my own healing on. Yes, that's what it felt like. And what was the other question you asked me?
It's sort of a bigger question about like, how did they know that you were coming, and how did they know to try to, you know, torture and traumatize you? To what end? And yeah, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so there was a project called Project Oak Tree, and Project Oak Tree was a military project where they tracked souls coming down to planet Earth on a specific mission. And these souls came into very specific mothers who had stargates as wombs, which means their life path number must be an 8 or an 11. Mothers that were born in the 1950s that were giving birth to sons in the 70s and daughters in the 80s. So I am one of these souls that was coming down. And so they knew that I was coming. So what happened is my mum got pregnant. My real mum got pregnant, and she didn't tell her parents that she was pregnant. She told her parents she was going to go to college. And so she went from Birmingham in the UK down to Cheltenham, where I was born. It's not far, actually. It's probably about 45 minutes on the train or an hour driving. So she went down there and she went into this home that women out of wedlock that are pregnant go to. And so she went in there. When it was time to give birth to me, they took her into a room and they left her there screaming for about 13 hours. And all of the numbers are really important. I was born at 3:50 in the afternoon, which is an 8, on the 8th of March. And when it was time for me to come out, 2 men in black masks walked into the room where my mum was with a lady in a mask. They parted my mum's legs and they got a massive pair of scissors. They started chopping her vagina up, and with no medication, they ripped me out, went and put me on a metal bed in the other room, and she left me there screaming. And they came back in hours later, stitched her up with no medication. And apparently, you know, having the stitches is worse than the actual cut with no medication in that part of the body. So, and then they just sent her on her way. And then I didn't see her for 24 years. Yeah. I tracked her down and found her.
Wow. It's kind of unbelievable. Why did the military care about you and these children? Like, what was their agenda? I know that they're tracking you, but what's the point?
There are certain souls that come onto this planet that have certain capabilities and the potential to create radical change. I'll give you another example. A few years ago, there was a baby in a hospital in Liverpool, and this baby was born, and the doctors told the mum and dad it had some kind of neurodegenerative disease. And so the baby's in hospital, and the mum and dad wanted to take the baby to some kind of specialist somewhere else in the world. So the armed police surrounded the hospital and wouldn't let them take their own baby to a specialist doctor. That sounds a little bit strange. You know, the baby's your own baby, and the police will not let the mum and dad take the baby somewhere else. So the question you got to ask is why? The baby was in hospital for like about a year or so. This baby was born, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was a year-ish before the royal family had their baby. I think it was William and Kate, their last baby. Well, I can't remember what the baby was called now, but that baby was obviously maturing in her womb, and they knew that it was coming out into the world, and they knew what soul was in the baby in the Liverpool hospital. So the soul of the baby in the hospital in Liverpool was actually Samuel from the Bible. They were going to do a soul transfer from the baby in hospital to Kate's womb. They were going to get rid of the soul in Kate's womb, use witchcraft, and transfer the soul from one body to the other. And they actually flew 13 witches from the Vatican through Ireland to Liverpool. But what happened is the witches got stopped in Ireland by a very specific team that knew about this. So they stopped it. And then obviously baby Alfie transitioned, the soul's gone back, and now Samuel is down in another body on planet Earth. Yeah. So this is what happens when you've got a very specific soul, they'll come after them. Years ago, in 2009, I moved to New Zealand after probably like 5 years into my spiritual journey. And I was meditating in a friend's copper pyramid in his garden, and my feet turned to balls of fire, and Jesus is there before me. And I'm looking at him. He says, Jerry, you can go anywhere you want to go in your life. Just don't be frightened. I'm like, okay. And then he turns and he walks up these steps, and he goes through a door. So I brought my light out of my body. I go up up the steps and through the door, and I follow him. And we're in the Last Supper, and I see an extraterrestrial craft, like in this kind of like vision that I'm in. And when I was in there, I was Matthew. So I had this experience, and I go back through the door, back down the steps, back into my meditation. Rewind or fast forward to about 2020 or 2021 when COVID was on. I was in Romania in Suceava with my partner Laurie, and we were at her mum's house, and I got the download that I needed to go to a place called Constanța. And Constanța is like 8 hours away from where we were on the train. And we were due to fly back to England the next day. But I was told you need to go there to collect something. Now, I knew that I'd had many experiences as this kind of vision of Matthew, okay? And I was traveling through what is now Romania on a mission. And I could never really figure out what this mission was, but I'd had these kind of glimpses of this kind of like voyage that I took on foot. And I met a girl the girl that I met was just like, she was like just a village girl from wherever she was from. But she was the soul of my partner that I'm with now. And she kept trying to tell me not to do it, don't do it. So anyway, we jump on this overnight train and we go down to Suceava. We check into a hotel. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's like 10, 11 in the morning. We walk down to this old casino, which is where I was told I needed to go to. And the casino was being worked on. Like it was like old, and it needed some restructuring and a new roof and bits and pieces. So we walked around the front, and we went down onto the beachfront along the back wall of the casino. I see this bit of like iron hanging out in a hole. So I jump up, I pull myself up thinking I'll be able to climb through, but it was a massive drop on the other side. And I thought I'm going to, probably break my ankles getting down there. So I came back, we walked along the beachfront by this wall, and there was a tunnel at the end. The tunnel was probably a few meters like long, and it was big enough for both of us to get into. But there was something engraved on the wall. There were some letters, and it was CULOTE, Culot. And I thought to myself, it doesn't really make any sense. I've never heard of Culot. So anyway, I Googled it, and it meant, so if you break it down, CU is control unit, and Culot means lesser of two evils and lives of the elite. So anyway, we read this message, and also it added up to my life path number, which is 9. So we're sat down by this tunnel, and then this massive wave of energy comes, and this being comes behind me and gives me a golden cloak. So I put the cloak up, and I go to reach into my pocket, but there's nothing there. And I don't know why I reach into the pocket. And then I was told, you need to go inside. You need to go now. Now, I had to climb up a wall, and there was security everywhere. Like people watching this building site, obviously, because it was dangerous if people got into it, There was machinery that could be stolen. So anyway, I climb up this wall, and I just hear go. So I start running across this forecourt, and I have this golden cloak on, and no one can see me. It was wild. I ran into the casino, down a couple of flights of stairs. When I got to the bottom, the ceiling was quite low and there was scaffolding everywhere because it was holding the ceiling up. So I'm walking through the scaffolding and it was pretty dark and it was quite an eerie feeling. I had to walk right to the back of the bottom level, and I was told, turn around and just be here. So I turn around, I'm there, and the frequency starts changing, and I start uploading this information. And what I'm uploading is the information that's on a golden, like Masonic holographic book. And this is what was in my pocket. And what had happened when I was Matthew thousands of years ago, I actually gave this book to the dark side. It had lots of ancient sacred wisdom, knowledge inside of it. And I sold myself out. That's what the girl was trying to do. She was trying to get me to not do that, but I still did it. Anyway, so this right. So I had to go back and retrieve the book. So they upload the book. I've got it in my pocket. And then these 3 reptilians come into the room thinking, shit. So I start walking forwards and I'm like, I need to get out of here. So I breathe and I didn't run, but I walked very quickly, like through the scaffolding and up the stairs. And they were zigzagging across the room. And I just kind of went up. I ran back across the forecourt, jumped down the side of the casino. Laurie was there having a download still finishing off her downloads. And we just sat there for a bit and then we kind of left. And then the book had so much information in it, like so much information. I was in the Great Pyramid. We finished our last Egypt tour a couple of weeks ago, and I went in and I went through a Stargate, and I'd done it 2 years before too. But this year I wanted to go through the Andromedan Gateway, and the knowledge that's in this book, it contains this kind of information of how to open these gateways and do different things. Yeah, so there's a lot of alchemical kind of knowledge in there, which is really important for humanity to really activate their superhuman potential. Yeah.
And as Matthew, so that would have like hidden that information from humanity. Like the reason that whoever wanted that book was to just hide it away.
So they used it for their own good. So the information is always can use it for not so good. Like, you know, the force is the same. Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, they both had the same force, but they just used it for different reasons. So this was around the first Jesus came to planet Earth. So people are always fixated on like the Jesus that they know about, who was only a kind of a 6 activated or 6 DNA activated strand avatar, which still had some amazing abilities. But the one before was a fully activated 12 strand templated Jesus. But he came to Earth to share Christ consciousness, or Christ consciousness, Kryst. It's all about the crystalline mathematics. So, and that's what we do with star magic. We're recoding people with the crystalline mathematics so their spines can straighten, so their tumors can disappear, so they can get up from wheelchairs. So what happened is this information that I had, I sold it, gave it. I'm not sure exactly how it went down, but I let it go to the other side and sold myself out, you know, went against my own. So I had to make that right in this reality.
Wow, interesting. Can you give me 2 minutes?
Yeah. Go for it.
Quick pause and I'll be right back.
Go for it, bro.
Right. Ready when you are.
Yes, bro. Let's do it. Sorry, man. I was just sending a quick message.
Yeah. No worries. When did 12-stranded DNA Jesus come?
Around 11 to 12,000 years ago.
Oh, interesting. Which was like right after the fall of Atlantis?
A little bit after that.
Interesting. Were you there with him incarnated at the same time as well?
As Matthew?
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, I mean, I have memories of that walk. I have memories of walking away from a group of people they were around a fire and they're outside in the night sky and do something. Like, I'm not sure what I had to go and do in this kind of like in this lifetime, but they trusted me to go and do something. And I was kind of walking off to do it and I never went back. It was the moment that I went off and went on this long walk, and it took me weeks to get from there to this kind of like place in Romania. Obviously the casino and all that wasn't there then. It was just like land, you know? Yeah. And also underneath that casino, there was a spacecraft as well. So where that land was, there was actually a craft down in the ground, like an underground base.
Wow. Interesting. And the city got built up around it, and then you had to go back to that specific spot.
Well, it's on the beachfront. So like the city's kind of like over a little bit, like maybe a mile or something is the main city. There's a couple of hotels nearby, but the nearest hotel is probably like 800 meters, 1,000 meters. The only thing that's there on that bit of land is this casino, you know? And it's interesting. I mean, if you look at a casino, like a casino is a place where a lot of negative energy takes place. A lot of people lose a lot of money. Like some people win, obviously, but there's a lot of low vibrational energy, a lot of people drinking, a lot of corrupt energy, so that energy gets harvested. So it doesn't surprise me that you've got some kind of like reptilian underground base with all of this knowledge, and then they go and build a casino on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. When you were talking earlier about the whole birth thing, my parents tell the story of how when they were going to go home, they were given a different baby and like to leave the hospital. And then my dad sort of realized that I wasn't the right one, and they like went and switched the babies back. But that makes me wonder if they were, I don't know, up to no good, if it was just an honest mistake.
Like, so when I was born, my real name was Daniel. And then I got adopted, and then my mum and dad changed my name to Jerry or Jeremy, but everyone calls me Jerry. And ever since I was little, I always knew that I was adopted. So I always had this thing in my mind, I wanted to find them. And I had this like document. It was like a document that the adoption agency had given to my adoptive parents. And on it talked about Cheryl, my mum, and that she was into badminton and sports and all of this sort of stuff. So I'd always read this. So I thought, I can't wait to meet this lady because she's just like me. And my dad was into sports and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, when I found my real mum, I had a conversation on the telephone with her for about 3 hours before we met. And it was like we'd known each other forever. When I went to meet her, I picked her up from the train station, and I was I had this expectation of this woman that was going to be a bit like me in some way. And when she kind of came off the train, she was so different. I mean, she didn't exercise, she was well overweight. The only bit that was the same was literally her eyes and her nose. This part of us is no different, but everything else is completely different. And the way what she kind of thinks and feels, and the way she operates in the world, like she's so different from me. And so I realized, that what they did with the adoption agency is they got me, and when they had some parents that wanted to adopt, they just kind of made up the documents to kind of fit the mold, really, Yeah, it wasn't true at all.
Gotcha. Interesting. What's your relationship with your birth mother like now?
Well, when I first found her, we had a whirlwind relationship. And, it was amazing. Like, she was coming down to our house in London to see my ex-wife and the two kids. And she'd come down every weekend pretty much. Sometimes she'd bring Luke and Jack, which are my little half brothers, which are big now. And her husband was not a very nice guy. And so he used to be horrible to her. And he brought the sons up to be horrible to her too. So she kept coming down to our house, and she kept pouring all of her problems onto us. And I said, listen, I love you, and I know you're going through this stuff, but you can't keep coming down here and pouring it into our family every weekend. Either you let me come and talk to him and do something, or you go to the police, or you just leave him. Like, do something. Like, make a choice. And she wouldn't make any of those choices, so she just stayed in kind of victim mode. So as crazy as it sounds, we ended up moving house because she was all over us. So we ended up moving house back up to Gloucester, where I lived when I was a kid. And we decided to move to New Zealand. And the day that we came out of our house to get in the taxi to go to the airport, she was there at the end of the driveway with her head on the steering wheel. And she said, you left me once, why are you leaving me again? I said, listen, you gave me up for adoption. I said, I don't care what the circumstances were, but that's what you made the choice to do. I certainly didn't leave you. I just jumped in the cab and we went. We stayed in New Zealand for 4 years. I think my ex-wife had spoken to her once or twice because they were good friends, but I didn't speak to her. When I came back to England, I got arrested. I went through a court case from an old crime, and I was looking at a long prison stretch. And when I went to court, I said to the universe, if you get me off this, I promise you I'll do this energy healing stuff. And I went to court, and the judge walked out with his two accomplices, and one of them had wings on her back, and she winked at me. To cut a long story short, they ended up giving me a 1-year conditional discharge and an £80 court fee. And so that's when I started Star Magic. Once I started Star Magic, I started getting invited to Turkey, where I am now, actually, funnily enough. And I was going to this healing center, and I was working on like one-on-one individual clients. I was doing 2-day workshops at the weekend. One day I am working on a client, and then I see this fire start to come down my shoulders and my arms, and I stop it when it gets to my elbows. I push it back out my body. I look around, and there's a Baphomet up behind me. So anyway, I deal with it, and I get it out of my space. I finish working, and that night I went to the gym. I set myself up a circuit, and I'm about to start my circuit, and this big guy comes over, and he starts moving my weights around. I said, listen, brother, I'm about to do a circuit, man. I've just set this up. Anyway, we almost got into a fight. The next night I was in there, he was lovely. So I knew that something had kind of like got into his consciousness the night before. Anyway, when I finished my circuit, I went into the sauna and I'm sat there on my own in my shorts, and I look out the little glass window, and there's like a reptilian looking at me, a being with a Tyrannosaurus Rex head, and this other weird like looking being. And I'm thinking, what's going on? So, and I'd already had like reptilian encounters and different things before this. So I finish my sauna and I go in to have this samam, and I get my body scrubbed. I come out and I'm sort of like a bit woozy. You know, when you've been in the heat, you've had a sauna, sort of lying in worlds. And I start getting this information on my birth. And so anyway, I phoned my real mum up, and that was when I started speaking to her again. And that's when she told me about the men in the black masks coming in and cutting her and all the stuff she went through. Around that time, when I was in Turkey, my daughter phoned me and she said, Dad, I've just been pulled off my horse by two reptilians and they're eating my womb. So anyway, I tuned in and I managed to get them off her, and her periods weren't right for about 18 months. The next few days, I go back to England, and my son, Josh, this big being comes in the nighttime and is strangling him, and he's trying to shout to me, but he can't. Then he remembers, open your heart, be in love. So he kind of went into himself, stopped panicking, opened his heart, got this golden like vortex out, this kind of sphere, and pushed the being out of his space with love, and it went. But when I started finding out this information about my birth and that, we had this massive kind of attack. And, but that's it. It also kicked some of the relationship off with my mum again. So my mum and I started like communicating. I went and took her out for lunch and we started chatting. And yeah, we speak now and again. But the good thing is she ended up splitting up with her partner, which was amazing. She went and got her own house and got her life back. And, you know, so she sort of sorted herself out a little bit, but we don't speak that much, not like we used to.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. There's so much in your life that's just completely astounding. I'm assuming that almost nothing surprises you anymore because of all of it. I would imagine that you have to have such low attachment to like where you're going to be called to run off to next, or, you know, what the being that shows up is going to look like. How do you deal with so many unexpected things coming at you all the time?
I think I've had such a crazy life that nothing really phases me. I mean, the whole reason that I went on this spiritual journey, I mean, I used to smuggle drugs and guns for a living, and I was involved in lots of high profile bank fraud. And I worked for a British criminal who lived in Tenerife in the Canary Islands for many years. And even then, from the ages of like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, like I saw so much violence. There was so many things that I did and tried and was involved in. And I saw this really dark side of life about how you should never treat a human. You know, the kind of company I worked for, if you did something wrong, you got your head kicked in or your fingers dipped in the piranha tank in the boss's office. So like things like that became normal to me. I remember when I moved back to the UK, some friends and I started a property business, and we brought in a sales team. And one day one of the guys didn't close any sales. So I screamed and shouted at him, because that's how I'd always been spoken to if I didn't do anything right. I'd never had a normal job where people spoke to you in a civilized fashion. So I didn't realize that you're supposed to speak to people like that. I just thought it was the normal thing to scream and shout it. Crazy that sound, you know? So I've always had these different ways of being, and it's taken me a while to kind of like rebalance and relearn and regrow. When I started this spiritual journey, I was in a car crash in Romania, and the taxi ran three ladies over. The first one came through the windscreen, smashed me in the face. I was asleep, got flipped over the car and died. Second one had her ankles cut off, and the third one was physically okay. When I got out of the car, I saw the lady with her ankles. I walked over to the dead body, saw the lady's soul leaving. Like these kind of things for me, I just kind of take them in my stride, because I've always had out there experiences for so long. When I first started my spiritual journey, some friends and I went to a talk on 2012 on the end of the Mayan calendar. And we're sitting in this guy's bungalow and he's talking to us. He's an older fella. And I asked him a question, which is a little bit contradictory, but I was just curious, you know, I was so curious. And he looked at me and he's staring into my eyes, and his face just disappeared, and there was a green lizard there. So I had a kind of a human reptilian experience very early on. And these experiences have just continued in different ways. And yeah, so I mean, I don't think about it like, how do I cope with this, or how do I manage this? Like for me, it's just like normal, all of it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Wow. Let's talk about star magic a little bit. What is it exactly?
So star magic is a healing technology that we can use to facilitate the healing of people at distance. So someone can be in another country, we can remove a tumor, we can help them stand up from a wheelchair. It doesn't really matter whether they've got a headache, whether they've got a broken nose, whether they've got cancer. All of these things are just communication from the body to let the human being know that there's something going on. Like if we taught our kids to breathe properly and how to read the body, they'd never ever get ill. It's that simple. If someone comes to me and says, "Oh, Jerry, I've got a problem with my liver," I know that they have anger issues or guilt issues or maybe both, because the body is a communication device and every single little body part means something. The neck is about rigidity. The hips are about direction, which links back to trust. The pancreas stores betrayal energy. Like everything means something. So if someone comes to me and says, "I've got this issue or that issue," I automatically know that it's something to do with this. Then what I have to do then is find out where that thing, that issue, that trauma was created. A lot of people work in people's childhoods, but that's only ever the tip of the iceberg. The real trauma happens in the quantum, past lives, future lives, which aren't really past and future. They're all parallel once you get into the field. But in this linear time construct, we can view them as past and future. So if someone is angry and guilty, they've got a tumor in their liver, then I need to find the quantum experience that they're still having somewhere in the field that is creating this on some timeline somewhere. Or it could be several experiences on 2 timelines or 8 timelines that are all woven into this one particular disease. So through a process that we teach people, we go in and we find this reality and we change the computer code. So a past life, a future life, a present day life experience is a piece of code. This cup that I'm drinking my water out of is a piece of code. The laptop that we're speaking through is a piece of code. Everything is geometry. Everything is mathematics. So imagine you wanted to change a laptop or a website on a laptop from purple to white. You go to your web developer and say, "Listen, bro, can you please change this from purple to white?" They mess around with the code and the website changes on the front end. This is no different. We go into the back end of someone's biological computer, their body and brain. We change the experience. The shift happens on the front end. Give you an example. 4 weeks ago, we were in Barcelona and we did a 2-day group healing. And we had a guy came with his wife and they were from France. And this gentleman had had a stroke and his brain was kind of like mashed. One side of his body was completely paralyzed. And he'd been in a wheelchair for 18 months, all of his right leg, like there was no muscle because it had wasted away. We were there for 2 hours. We worked 6 days on the Saturday, 6 days on the Sunday, facilitating the healing, doing breath work, different protocols that we use to initiate these processes and catalyze the shifts and change. It was about 2 hours into the second day, and he just gets up from his wheelchair and starts walking out of nowhere. And the reason this happens is because we're changing his mathematics. Most people's geometry is the Fibonacci code. The Fibonacci spiral is a dangerous energy system because it has no link to the 0 point. 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 5 equals 8, and so on. So to correct 8, it has to eat 5 and 3. 5 has to eat 3 and 2. So it has to keep eating itself to sustain itself. So at some point, it's just going to collapse. Now, if you look at the crystalline mathematics, you've got 0 plus 1 plus 1 equals 2, 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 equals 4, 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 4 equals 8, 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 equals 16. So every number is an addition of all the previous numbers. So always links back to the 0 point. So that frequency, that set of mathematics, it links into Nikola Tesla's 369. It links into octahedral pyramid technology. It's the real mathematics. It's the source code. And it's what universes and multiverses are built out of at the core. But what's happened is this planet has become a Metatronic structure. So it's held inside Metatron's cube. And the cube is dangerous. Even our hearts are cubed in 3D. When we want to ascend and we want to expand and activate our multidimensional light body, we've got to change our cube to a dodecahedron. And from there, we activate the spiral. And then once you activate the spiral, then you can shift your frequency and completely elevate and expand. So this guy, what we did is we changed his mathematics. And as soon as we changed his mathematics, he stood up and walked. I mean, it was beautiful. His wife, she was on the floor meditating with an eye mask on. And I walked up to her and I got down by her side and I said, your husband's walked. And she kind of freaked out a little bit because he was deep in a meditation and she just heard these voices and I could see she was stunned in her brain. She didn't know what to do, like a rabbit in headlights. And then she lifted off her eye mask. She looked around at him. By this time, he'd sat back down in his wheelchair, so she hadn't actually seen him walking. So she runs over to him, really excited. She jumps on him and straddles him. She's hugging him. She's kissing him, and they're in this beautiful experience together. It goes on for a couple of minutes, and then it dawns on her, I've not seen you walk yet. So she gets up and she's like, are you lying to me? Is this real? Did this really happen? So she gets up and she's like, stand up, stand up. I need to see you walking. Like there was a part of it that like shut it out because she hadn't seen it yet. So then he gets up and he starts walking again. Then she bursts out crying. Like it was just the most unbelievable experience to witness. And I think it was the reaction of the wife that blew us all away more than him getting up from the wheelchair because of how relieved she was, how happy she was, you know? It was mind blowing, you know?
Wow. That's beautiful. What a privilege to be able to help people to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's what makes us tick, you know? It's why we get up in the morning, man.
Yeah. By the way, I want to get your thoughts on something. I was playing ultimate frisbee, which is a bit like soccer. I don't know if you know it, but anyway, I dove for a catch and I basically tore my shoulder up. I landed on it wrong and it popped open and it was like not open, but it's like something inside tore or was injured. And I was like, oh, why did this happen? And it took probably like the last 3 months to rehab it. But I had this sense of like, when you have a pipe and there's a blockage and there's nothing else you can do but just like ram the blockage through. And I was like, I felt like now there's something flowing through my shoulder that wasn't allowed to flow before. But I was like, why would I have to go through an injury to open a flow like that? And what is the flow? What are your thoughts on something like that? Is on the right-hand side?
Yes, I mean, the right-hand side is the male side. So you had an accident. Yeah, I know you were playing frisbee and you dove and all this kind of stuff, but you had an accident. And people only have accidents when they don't feel safe. So somewhere inside of you, there will be a piece of you that doesn't feel safe. Or maybe since the injury's taken place, all of that crap has risen to the surface and transmuted. But people don't have accidents if they don't feel safe. And also it's the shoulder, which means you're carrying this wound or whatever it is that you weren't feeling safe about, whether it's from this life or multiple other realities. There's a part of you somewhere that doesn't feel safe. And the reason that you don't feel safe is because you don't trust somewhere along the line. There's elements with trust. And the trust comes from betrayal. So the betrayal energy is stored in the pancreas. So it's about going in, cleansing out that pancreas, which may have already happened, actually doing the work or going through this kind of process. But you can ask, is this dealt with yet? I mean, what I would do if it was me, I'd bring up my hologram and I would look at the hologram, open my heart, connect with it and entangle the hologram with me, make sure it was okay. She'd say, this is the hologram of Derek. This is the hologram of Derek. And I'd say it 3 times because 3 is the number for creation. Just solidify that quantum entanglement and ask to see your pancreas. Does my pancreas look healthy and vibrant? If it does, great. If it doesn't, and it looks a bit black or brown or whatever, however it shows up, ask, how can I clean this right now? So what I would do is I would connect to the constellation of Leo. I would connect to the constellation of Virgo, run those into my body, and that will start to clear up the old toxicity and the stuck energy in that area of the body. The other thing you can do is you could get a healthy pancreas. So you could ask to see a pancreas of yours in another timeline. So get the healthy pancreas, just switch them out. You can do that. Just take one out, the other one in. That's how easy it is. I mean, we have people that have got one lung or their kidneys are smashed or they've got no gallbladder. We give them a quantum one and they start functioning properly. Yeah, like everything that's physical is grounded in the quantum field. So if you work in the quantum, that's how you can kind of manipulate and change the physical. You're not going to change the physical by trying to change the physical. You've got to go into the quantum.
And is it a process that you train people in to be able to do that? Or is it, because I imagine not everyone has the same ability to perceive as much as you do. But is this a trainable skill?
Absolutely. We've got 3 levels of training. We've got level 1, level 2, level 3, and then we've got Jedi training. So level 1 is 5 days. And in level 1 training, we show you how to get the information from the field, how to use the information, how to heal yourself, how to heal other people, how to heal groups of people. There's multiple activations that you go through. And it's just, I mean, if all you wanted to do is to heal yourself or other people or start a healing business, you only need to come to level 1. But if you're interested in planetary grid work, Stargate work, traveling multidimensionally, and really activating your superhuman potential, then you come to level 2. And then level 3 is what we call through the Stargate, where we show groups of people, we show people how to take groups of people on intergalactic journeys through portals, through Stargates to other planets, so they can have uploads and downloads in different healing chambers and meet different beings and collect information, how to get there and back safely. And then Jedi training is just where we take a small select group of people to an island where we sit with scorpions and snakes and just have to stay extremely present so we don't get bitten. It's just a test of kind of strength of presence, really.
Wow. And I imagine, so what's the best place for people to find those trainings?
Yeah, if you go to starmagichealing.org and then go to the events page, check out everything we've got, go to the training pages. If you want to book a call with one of our team, you can do that. They'll jump on a call on Zoom, the phone, and talk you through what we're up to.
And I also wanted to ask you about healing centers. You're building a whole bunch of healing centers. Is that right?
Yeah, so we started Star Magic in 2016, and I was meditating one day, and the same blue being that took me in the spacecraft to Alpha Centauri came to visit me again and told me that we needed to build healing centers. What actually happened, I was looking out over the town, and the town just disappeared. And I saw the Christ consciousness grid of the planet, and all of these little dots started appearing. And I said to Derek White, this being, what are they? And he said, they're healing centers. You need to build them. And I said, well, if I build them, how am I going to run them? He said, well, you need to train people. So I ran home, designed the training program. I wrote a book on this stuff. And then we did our first training program the following February, which was 2017. And we've been buying land over the last years in Madeira, Romania, the UK. We're looking in America at the moment. And we're actually about to start building our first one. We've had everything's been planned. Everything's been designed. We're just waiting for the last bit of planning permission, and then we're going to start building. So it's really, really exciting. Yeah. And the buildings, they're all geometrical, not the kind of geometry you get here on Earth. It's geometry from the stars, but very high frequency buildings. And yeah, we're looking forward to getting them up and running. You know, they're going to be there to help humanity. Like, people come for their own healing or teach people how to heal other people, but they're also a facility for the children. So that these new star kids that are coming down, they're so potent. Like, their energy systems are completely different from most adults, and they have a whole different range of skill sets and abilities. And we want these healing centers to be like an upgraded kind of Hogwarts, like a place where children can come and showcase their multi-dimensional abilities and be safe whilst they're doing it. So yeah, that's the real kind of fundamental reason to help these star children tell us how to run, show us how to run.
Do you have architectural designs or renderings of these buildings? I'm so curious because we're also working on a community project where we'll be building things, and I'd be curious to see how they're designed.
We've got drawings, we've got video models, all from the outside, the inside. You can go into every room, walk around. It's all on our website. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And where in the States are you looking for this?
We don't really know 100%. We've looked at a few different bits of land and nothing's really been correct. So all the bits of land that we've got at the moment, they're all on grid points. They've all got portals on them. You know, like the one in Romania, we have is open the portals. They come through, they're rearranging the grid structures. So the main building where we're going to train people and drink ayahuasca is going to be a multidimensional Merkaba. So they've been rearranging the grid so that they all intersect right where the multidimensional Merkaba is going to go. So yeah, they've got to be very, very strong portal points, very strong on the ley lines. You know, it's all about the architecture under the ground. What we're doing is pulling the information from the sky, grounding them through these healing centers, running them through the grids and connecting all the grids under the ground. So it could be one of many places. It really depends on what pops up. But the ones that we've bought so far, they've come to us in very strange circumstances. Like they've not even been available. And then we had a guy that had a brain tumor he was from Portugal, and he had family in Madeira, and he said, listen, Jerry, there's this bit of land in Madeira. I think you should come and have a look at it for your healing centers. It was off the market. It had been repossessed by the bank, but he knew the prime minister about it. And so through this weird train of events, we ended up getting hold of it and buying it. And then the same in Romania as well. Like everywhere we've been, it's just been an interesting road to acquiring it. And so I think the same thing will probably happen on the next one in America. It's just, I'm not exactly sure where.
Interesting. Yeah, as you were talking, you're saying it has to do with what's underneath. And I immediately thought of Arkansas because there's this huge, deposit of quartz down in Arkansas, which is right below where, I'm in Missouri. Arkansas is just below us.
A few people have mentioned Arkansas.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll be curious to see how it shakes out. Well, this is all so fascinating and amazing. And really appreciate you taking the time, joining from Turkey, coming on. I'd love to continue sometime because there's a deep well of stories there, it sounds like. But
yeah, fancy jumping on again, brother. Just let me know and we'll fix it.
Amazing. Anything else you want to share before we wrap that you haven't?
I would just say meeting these cosmic grandfathers and going through my own processes. Like as a child, I never really liked women. I'd had so many bad experiences with them. So I grew up not liking the divine feminine and always being against it. And, working with the grandfathers and stuff, working on myself over the last years, I've come to love the divine feminine so much. And what's really important for every human being on planet Earth right now is to really bring that masculine and feminine electrical and magnetic flow down through their central column and balance their own inner twin flame union. And that is the foundation of everything. And then from there, the masculine has to rise, the lion, the king, the protector, the one that makes the feminine feel safe, the one that loves and supports the feminine. And the feminine has to rise and bring forth the king. So it's about the masculine and feminine really being in equilibrium, equal par. No one's above or below. Everything's just kind of even Stevens, and having that real respect for each other and allowing that sacred union to rise within ourselves and then within our divine counterparts. And through that process, we become, our own walking, talking stargates. And that's how the planet's going to shift.
And I think you mentioned that when the grandfathers first came to you, you were just creating a program for that. Is that something now that's also in addition to the star magic that you're doing?
Yeah, we call it the Savage Man. And we actually did it last July. Yeah. Like the grandfather showed up on the 1st of June and we were starting the Savage Man on the 1st of July. So I don't think it's any coincidence it kind of happened like that. So yeah, we had 30 men that we brought to Holland. We had a 13-day process. We broke them down mentally, emotionally, physically. We did circuit training, a lot of emotional work, meditation, breath work. We taught them how to fight. They were boxing in the boxing ring. And then we did that for 10 days. And at the end of it, we did plant medicine for 3 days. So it was an amazing breaking down and rehabilitation process. And we just sent them out back into the world as lions. They found that real powerful, balanced, masculine element of themselves.
Amazing. Wow. So much, sounds like so much fun what you're doing.
It's awesome, bro. We do plant medicine retreats, trips to Egypt, to Peru. Like there's lots of things we do as well as, training people to heal. So there's something for everybody. And we've got an app as well. On the app, you can download it on Android, Apple. We've got meditations, light language transmissions. There's cosmic yoga, breath work, exercise, nutrition, mystery school teachings on all different kinds of subjects and topics. And we meet every Monday and Wednesday and second Sunday on Zoom for transmissions, DNA activations, meditations, light language transmissions. So we're a real connected community. So if anyone out there is interested, you can get access to all of that free for 7 days to try it out at starmagichealing.org.
Amazing. Yeah, love it. Yeah, well, hopefully we get to connect in person at some point on one of those, or whenever you're in the States or whenever I'm somewhere else in the world. So yeah, it's been great having you on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, brother. It's been an honor and a pleasure to share with you and your audience.
All right, Jerry, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.